I'm working on this 1961 wheel horse, model 401. In the last video, I got the engine off, and now I'm going to continue taking it apart. Next is this clutch linkage. First I need to take off the spring. It's connected to the cotter pin there. That's the way Wheel Horse did it on these. And all these springs seem to have a bent spot around there. I'm going to have to research why that happens. This is not going too well. The cotter pin's stuck hard in there, and I'm just bending the ends around. I'm going to have to cut the ends off and file them down flush to get it out of the hole. Sometimes you can get enough leverage with these cutters to pull part of it out. Not this time. I'm going to have to do it the hard way. Hopefully this one will go a little bit easier. Here's another set screw collar. Just like usual, it won't come off until you clean the shaft. That all looks good. You can't get the handle off yet because this tab's welded on the back. This curved part has to come off first. I want to take this cable off next. This looks like it might be a cotter pin. It's pretty mangled. Yep, I think that was a cotter pin. Next is this curved part with notches. There's a bolt on each end of it. Now I'm pushing the thumb button on the lift lever to get the curved sector out from under that welded tab. An interesting comment about this washer: it's in the parts diagram for 1961 model 401, but it's not in the parts diagram for 1960s model 400, even though the surrounding parts on those are identical. So for some reason, the designers thought the handle should be spaced away from the frame. It could have been for mechanical alignment reasons, or maybe they just didn't like the way the handle could scrape the paint off the frame. There's 2 bolts that hold this hood support onto the frame. This nut under the seat is a square nut. This seat's in really good shape. Here's another little tiny cotter pin. This front seat bolt holds the cable housing in place. Remember, those bolt holes go right into the transmission, so when you're lifting the stuff off, try not to disturb any dirt. You don't want anything going into those bolt holes. And then promptly put the bolts back in to plug the holes. I'm taking the front axle off next, so the steering part's gotta come off. This nut's coming off hard. I'm gonna tighten it back up and get some lube on the threads. This nut on top functions as a lock nut. The bolt's threaded into the frame from below. So you want to take the nut off first, then unscrew the bolt from the frame down below. When it goes back together, the nut locks the bolt in place to provide the right clearance for the steering arm to move. The front wheels are next. Now I want to take off the steering parts. The tie rod comes first. Looks like I gotta go get some leverage. This one's tight in there too. I'm gonna tighten it back up and clean it and lube it first. The camera died there before I got the last bolt out, but there it is. The spindles are next. They have a snap ring at the top. You're looking under the frame behind the front axle. The axle pivot bolt threads into the frame, and this is the lock nut. There's a problem here. Once the lock nut's off, this bolt should come right out, but this one's stuck in the axle. I'm gonna knock on it a little bit. Yeah, that's not working. I'm gonna stabilize the axle a little better. It feels like there's a little bit of movement. I don't want to twist the bolt head off. I'm going to move on to other things and think about it. These lug bolts go through the casting, so it helps to get the rust off the threads before you take them out. And I'll put some lube on them. If the threads were clean on this linkage, I'd take the nut off first. I'm going to take the linkage and brake band together, then I can wire brush the linkage before I try to move the nut. There should be a snap ring under this glob of grease and dirt. That there is why I wanted to take this part off. Now the same thing on this side. It's coming off just to clean the area behind it. That woodruff key wants to stay in there. That's okay. Next is the hitch. There's a snap ring on each side. The pin's not stuck in the hitch, but the pin might be stuck in the transmission side plates. Yeah, it's stuck in there. I'm going to try something else. This is PB Blaster, a penetrating fluid. I'm using a piece of aluminum. Hold it square with the pin. You don't want to hit the edge of the pin or you'll mash the ring groove. If I had gotten the front axle off, I might not be doing this, but I'm going to separate the frame and transmission so I can take a look at the front axle easier. Well, that's as far as I'm going this time. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this front axle. Probably try some heat first. And if I break the bolt head off, I'll have to go to plan B. If these hubs are tight on the axles, I won't take them off. As long as I can clean everything good, I'll just make sure the screw's tight on those. I'm not going to take this shaft out. That roll pin's small and frequently hard to get out. I can clean around it pretty well, so it's not worth taking off. Alright, that's it.